In the spirit of reconciliation, the IMAA acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders, both past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Under the guidance of Reconciliation Australia, we've developed a reconciliation action plan based on 3 core pillars: education, influencing positive change, and taking tangible action through our involvement with the Impaja program and other sponsored projects. The IMAA is committed to creating a safer place for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, both within our network and more broadly within the Australian media landscape. Reconciliation is a journey, and we're on that journey together.
The Reserve Bank tipped to raise rates by 0.25%, the highest rate in more than a decade.
The lifeblood of the Australian economy, and a perfect storm of financial pressure is pushing more and more to the edge. Up to 30% are on the brink of collapse.
If you pass a service station with cheap fuel, jump on it. Prices at the bowers are already starting to surge.
Very stormy, and right now it's pretty choppy, to be frank with you.
Have you seen the news lately?
Fears of a global recession are escalating tonight.
The first half of the new year could be a strain on family budgets, according to financial experts.
2023 has been painted as a storm to be weathered. But from the darkest storms come the brightest bolts of lightning, insights, ideas, and inspiration. 2023 isn't an obstacle to be sailed around, but a challenge to be faced head on. Prepare to set sail into a sea of opportunities. Welcome to the IMAA's Operation Kickoff. Today, we've brought together industry leaders and expert minds from across Australia's media landscape: audio, television, digital, publishing and news, regional media, outdoor, cinema, research and data, to help give your agency the edge needed to thrive in 2023. The latest market learnings, industry forecasts, thought leadership, challenges, and solutions. To launch the IMAA's Operation Kickoff, please welcome to the stage IMAA CEO Sam Buchanan.
Thank you, ARN, for that somewhat embarrassing introduction. Welcome to Operation Kickoff. I am beyond excited to welcome everyone here today. And as mentioned before, this is the day that the industry bodies gather to educate the indies about what they need to know going into 2023. So I hope you enjoy. I want to welcome, firstly, all of our member leading agencies here today, physically in Hoyts Cinema. I also want to welcome all streaming in. So I think we've got a couple of thousand streaming in through our channels. I want to welcome our partners, the IMAA partners who keep the IMAA moving, and also the industry bodies, our industry body partners as well. I want to welcome our journalists and special guests, and also I want to welcome B&T viewers who are streaming in as well. I want to say thank you to our media partners. I always don't get enough time to do this, but I want to say thank you for your support. We're a non-for-profit, and the work that these guys do in funding the IMAA keep the wheels moving and keep the good work happening. So I want to say thank you to these guys, and if you do get the opportunity to support them, please do. I want to say thank you to our association partners and participating in today, and also our education programs as well. I want to say thank you to the board of the IMAA that includes Jackie Alley. Put your hand up. Jack, where are you? Dominic Pearman, who's here today as well, Steve Fagan, Nick Bear, and Darren McKenzie. These are the board that meet. They give up their own time out of their businesses to actually help run this industry body, so thank you. The leadership team, who give up every single month, they give up a couple of hours to run certain channels. Steve's on that as well as the amazing Tom Fraser. Where's he? He's here today. There we go. Who have we got? Mel Roberts from the Ad Room, Phil McDonald from Brisbane, Angela Smith, the amazing Angela Smith, she's here today as well, from Affinity, and also Ez Chandra from WA as well. So thank you. Also my amazing team, Beck, who is absolute powerhouse and balanced the yin to the yang of the IMAA, and Tian, who's done an amazing job in bringing today together and also, running all of our functions and also supporting the back end as well. So thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge our green partner. C20, they support us and have donated 5 tonnes of carbon taken out of the ecosystem for today. So that way we can all sleep tonight knowing this is a carbon neutral event. There's actually about two tonnes to actually run an event like this, but because there's so much hot air with an event attached like this, there's actually 5 tonnes. And 5 tonnes is the equivalent, there's my dad joke, 5 tonnes is the equivalent to 1.6 million hours on a MacBook Pro. So it's a lot of energy that's being used, and that is the same amount of time that's also used when I'm talking to my father-in-law. The agenda today, we have got absolutely crammed packed with hearing from everyone. Firstly, the CEO of CRA, that's a bit of a mouthful for NS, is going to start things off with audio. Then we've got the amazing Vanessa Lyons talking about publishing and news. She's the executive GM of Think News Brands. The incredible Gai Leroy, CEO of the IAB. The very handsome Guy Verdage, thank you, sir, sitting over there. We're in his house today, and we pay homage to him, talking all things cinema. Flying in direct from Singapore, we've got Dom Birch from GWI talking about research and insights. So if he's a bit jet lagged, just poke him, he'll get through it. We'll have intermission in the middle. Then we'll hear about regional and Boomtown from Brian Gallagher. We'll hear from the amazing Kylie Green, General Manager of OMA. We'll hear from Pim Portrait, and then after that, we are going to have the mother of all networking sessions just across the road at the Urban Winery. This is something not to be missed. There is going to be $50,000 worth of advertising given away at this event. So please stay tuned for that. So a quick snapshot of the year in review. Most of you have seen the slide, but I'll just rush through it. We're now at 155 odd members around Australia and not slowing down at all. We've had the pleasure of single-handedly changing the media landscape and, giving a voice to Australian businesses. We've negotiated a better deal for industry, reducing your running costs. We've got 30 deals in play, and we've got a few more coming up in the next 6 months. We've challenged government legislation and gotten a bit of a fist fight with Victor Dominello along the way. And actually, it was only 24 hours ago we threw a bit of a hand grenade into the Queensland government. We've also delivered events such as Digital Deep Dive last year and Audio Unlimited with our audio partners, CRA. And also hundreds of webinars every Monday, and sometimes it's twice a week, different webinars about different channels or things, whether it be designed for juniors or for leaders. We have run multitude of surveys, putting an angle on what's on the minds and the hearts of indies. We have also got set up channels such as the IMAA YouTube channel, the member profile program, directories, and also our learning hub as well, which we're tremendously proud of. We've run campaigns and launched an international staff transfer program at the start of last year, and much, much more, but I won't bang on about that. What we're most proud about is making actual tangible change to the industry. Late last year, we launched Project Earth. This is where we set up education on sustainability for our industry, and also some discounts on sustainable with some partners. At the end of this month, we will also be having Clean Up Australia Day with many of the agencies in this room today and the partners as well, which we're really, really excited about. I think there's 35 in total. We have given a scholarship for Media Week Academy to 2 of our members. Sparrow's over there. Hello, sir. And also, we've launched a inclusive and leadership training for diversity and inclusion for our CEOs, actually changing the industry from the inside out to making sure we are a truly diverse industry. And then finally, reconciliation. We do a number of things in this space, but what we're most proud of is we're actually facilitating $45,000 worth of donations for the King's Narrative. They're based in Alice Springs, and if you've been under a rock, you wouldn't have heard that, it's in the centre of the news at the moment, and what they do out there is at the absolute epicentre of the solution. So what to see in 23? There's a whole bunch of things happening, but I'll quickly just tell you some of the big ones. Late last week, we launched our process to address some of the talent crises. So we actually have launched a campaign in the UK to bring POMs out to Australia. I think some of you have seen that TVC. I never thought I would say this in my career, but we're actually actively bringing POMs to Australia, so fantastic. And that's a two-prong approach to address the talent crisis. The second prong I will talk about shortly. We've got education events, so we'll be doing a TV, an outdoor, and possibly an audio event in Sydney and Melbourne later on this year. We're going to be doing a summit and an awards in some capacity later on this year. And then finally, continually to make our industry a better place, and we hand our industry on to the next generation better than what we found is what we're truly proud of. So, now it's time, as I bring my presentation to somewhat of a high point, I am excited and tremendously nervous to present and actually formally launch the IMAA Academy today. This will be launching in the 1st of March. A quick fact that Australia spends $7 billion on recruitment and only $4 billion on training. Now, you imagine if we swap that out, we wouldn't be recruiting as many. So there's a real focus. Plus, you know, we're an industry that learns on the job, and we haven't had that much over the last couple of years. We've got to attract talent into our industry. So I'm really, really proud to share the IMAA Academy with you.
Introducing the IMAA Academy, an e-learning course designed to educate on the foundations of media. This all-inclusive training program features content for both junior and senior level employees. Our syllabus includes 8 e-learning modules, videos, plus podcasts from industry leaders and channel specialists. Subjects covered include the fundamentals of media, the current media landscape, and detailed overviews of 7 media channels. The IMAA Academy ensures that all participants gain a thorough understanding of the media landscape. Courses can be purchased separately or in one all-inclusive package, which includes the 8 learning modules and our Business in a Box training program. Plus, for every $1 spent on a learning package, you'll receive 10 Qantas points. So whether it's seasoned professionals or recent graduates, the IMAA Academy is tailored to suit different schedules and learning needs. Learn from the best with insights and advice from some of the industry's finest minds. The IMAA Academy, created by the industry, for the industry. Find out more at theimaaa.com.au/academy.
This has been 2 years of work that we believe is going to deliver the most comprehensive training to the media industry, targeted at that generation coming through. We have had help from most of you in this room, to be honest, and we need it. But firstly, I just want to thank the industry bodies that have all helped and with the heavy lifting. We're launching 8 courses. The first one's going to launch on the 1st of March, and then every 6-week additional channels will be added. All of these wonderful agencies have all participated. Why? Because they're making the industry a better place. And I will also share some of these fine human beings who have also been heavily involved. Anthony Douglas, I don't know if he's here today, but he's been instrumental with this. Ange Smith, who was previously with the IMAA, she's been helps. And Alex Peckish as well, who's been, you know, right there at the foundations. As well as I want to call out Beck, who has probably given her a few grey hairs, so no one mention it to her for fear of your own life. So a quick facts about it. It's a comprehensive program across all channels. It's e-learning at the heart, but what comes with it is reading, it's podcasts, and it's also videos with some of the industry's leading experts. There are 8 courses to do within the IMAA Academy, and they're rolled out every 6 weeks over 2023. It is 10 Qantas points for every $1 you spend on it, and it's a very, very cheap process. It starts at something like, for members, it starts at $650 odd, so it's very, very affordable, and it's exclusively, at least at the start, it's exclusively for members, for their partners, and also for clients as well. So we're really, really excited about that. You will receive in your goodie bag as you leave this document here, which will have all the information out about it. So please read over that as we approach and talk to you guys on the 1st of March. It also has Business in a Box. Now, Business in a Box is your training program, your complete training program for your business. So this will cover off everything from seniors to juniors. It covers off things such as, perhaps this generation may have lost, is presenting and phone conversations. And it'll also cover off things such as compliance, so anti-harassment, anti-bullying, all those kinds of things as a business you need to know about and have. So this is all included within the package, and these courses will be rolled out as well. There's also management training in there about performance management, people development and people performance. So we're really, really excited about that. So that's enough of my yakking, guys. Please, let's kick off with audio first. I'd like to welcome to the stage Ford Ennis, who will be talking. He's the CEO of the CRA, and he's going to be talking all things audio. So give it up for him, please. Welcome to the stage, Ford.
Let's get this show on the road. Sam, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm a little disappointed you didn't call me either incredible or handsome, which you did everybody else, but I'm not going to take it personally. You may have noticed I am part of the Pommy brain drain. I arrived last year, and I'm absolutely thrilled and proud to have made Australia my home. And I wanted to thank so many people for the incredible welcome they've given me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, to be with you today. Beyond pleased to share my excitement about the incredible audio growth opportunities that we're going to see in 2023. Audio, quite simply, the fastest growing and most dynamic media market in Australia. It's good to see so many of you here, and I know Sam's told me so many more are streaming into this amazing event. One of the things I've learned about being here is that you guys all have a break in January. We don't do that in England. It's still snowy and rainy, but you guys enjoy your January, and I know a lot of you had a break, and I hope you had a great Christmas break. And before I get going with my presentation, I want to share with you something personal. I want to share with you what I got up to on my Christmas break. I got married. That's so sweet. That's so sweet. Applause wasn't required. It was just a thing I was sharing with you. And even though I don't know you that well, not yet anyway, I wanted to share with you what I got up to on my wedding night. No, really, here we go. Yeah, call me an old romantic, but on my wedding night, I was up at 2 a.m. to watch the Soccer World Cup final. What a night it was. And that's what I call a kickoff. And to kick off this presentation, let's have a look at the commercial radio and audio star power that's keeping Australians listening and gets them talking. Okay, real star power, right? And stars not just of commercial radio, but across audio and digital media, with their own podcast that receives millions of downloads, millions of followers on social media, and of course stars of major TV shows. And it's not just me and my CRA colleagues who are talking up audio growth. When PwC wrote their Entertainment and Media Outlook report last September, they projected future radio-related audio growth over the next 3 to 5 years of over $250 million of revenue, with a doubling of digital radio streaming and a trebling of podcasting. Now, you can all accept that audio is shifting, it's on fire. You might ask, how did this happen? How did this come about? I remember audio being this kind of sleepy market. Well, I think, there are probably 3 factors that I would cite. First, and probably most obviously, is the massive acceleration of the take-up of digital audio devices. I mean, 30% of Australian homes now have a smart speaker, which despite all the bells and whistles of AI and voice control, is basically a radio and audio player. And of course, we've all now got Bluetooth wireless headphones, perfect for listening to podcasts on the daily commute, when you get off the phone, that is. And the net result is that people listen to nearly 3 hours of audio every single day, which is an hour more than they watch TV. And while digital technology makes it easier for people to listen to audio whenever and wherever they are, what really matters is the content. That's what people want. It's the audio content. And that's the second factor. The amount and quality of audio has just exploded. Thousands of podcasts, hundreds of DAB and streaming radio stations, tens of great streaming apps and services. We've never had so much great audio choice. A great example is the Australian podcast market. And we're one of the most advanced podcast markets in the world, with 40% of Australians listening every single month. It's so dynamic and it changes so much, it's hard to actually keep up with all the new titles. Well, one tip for you, one way to do that is to search the Australian Podcast Ranker, which provides a great snapshot of the most listened to podcasts in Australia. The podcast on the Ranker in 2022 saw an increase of a staggering plus 39% to 755 million downloads in the year. And if you look at the most popular podcasts, you see some familiar faces and some even more familiar voices. The most listened to podcast genre in Australia is true crime, no surprise there. But 3 out of the top 5 podcasts are content from commercial radio groups and using big radio names like Hamish and Andy, like Kyle and Jackie O. So that's 2 factors, and I guess the third one may surprise you. The third factor of the audio growth is the continued growth of commercial radio audiences. In fact, over the last 5 years, 1.2 million more people are listening to commercial radio than ever before. And how many established and successful mediums can say that? Now, that growth is driven partly by population growth, for sure, but it's also driven by new listeners on digital devices, by listeners rediscovering radio at home during the pandemic, and some listeners migrating from ABC radio. Either way, commercial radio today in 2023 is in rude health. I mentioned the impact of the pandemic on radio, and during the last few years of COVID and the series of weather emergencies, radio really demonstrated its value to communities and its value to individuals as a trusted source of news and information. People listen to the radio and they believe what they hear, and you can see that they do the same for the radio ads as well. It works in just the same way. So radio is in great shape. But despite the growth of radio, the innovation of radio, it seems that there are a number of uninformed myths going around about radio that I couldn't leave unproven in this session, so I was going to address them. You'll have heard some of them. It's possible you may have repeated some of them. I hear apparently how apparently young people don't listen to radio, more people listen to Spotify than radio. People only stream their phone in cars these days, apparently. Apparently people only listen to radio in cars. Of course, they're all categorically untrue. And you don't need to take my word for it. The facts, the evidence, the research could demonstrate that. The majority of young audiences listen to radio. Many more people of all ages listen to radio than Spotify. Less than 10% of all listening in the car is streaming. And more people listen to the radio at home and at work than in the car. In fact, radio has never been more relevant and vibrant than it is today in 2023. And one specific study that shows the true position of commercial radio in the overall audio market is what we call the share of audio. Some people call it the share of ear. It's everything you hear. The share of audio study from last year. We can see that commercial radio accounts for almost 3/4 of commercial radio listening. You can see that here. And that's more than 7 times the listening levels of free Spotify. And if you look at the key demographic of 25 to 54s, radio actually has a 65% share of total audio, and that's more than 5 times the listening levels of free Spotify. What's interesting, though, is you see that as the growth of free music streaming has flattened, what we now see is that in this critical group, the 25 to 54s, actually podcast listening is actually greater than the music streaming listening, which is a real development and very interesting. And despite this position of strength in radio and audio, we're not at all complacent, quite the contrary. It's a competitive marketplace. There are real challenges, as Sam's alluded to, in 2023. And we're continually conducting new research studies, looking for new ways to demonstrate the effectiveness of commercial radio as a progressive and innovative ad medium. We launched the audio planning tool last year in conjunction with our friends at Nielsen on the commercial radio website. The Nielsen CMV data on the tool demonstrates the unbeatable channel reach of commercial radio by demo and category versus all other forms of audio. And if you haven't seen it, please check it out on the commercial radio website. We then followed that with conducting the world's first radio attention study with our friends at Amplified Intelligence. This demonstrated the absolute effectiveness of radio, providing an overall increase in brand choice of over 20% for those clients who used it. And that's over 40% for the important auto and quick serve retail categories. And we're now launching this study and showing it on our website for the first time. And in the first half of 2023, we'll be introducing the world's first hybrid radio measurement system. It's what we call Radio 360. You've probably heard about it before. We've been talking about it for a while. We're now ready to deliver it. And I'm sure what it will do is further validate the strength and power of radio listening. It uses, for the first time, multiple sources of data, including electronic data. It'll be a great platform for future growth, particularly for digital radio streaming, which will separate and will highlight the power that offers. And we're really excited, Sam, to share that with you and your IMAA members in the next month or so. But if we know anything about 2023, we know it's going to be a challenging year, a really challenging year. And in times of uncertainty, you need to be confident in your investments and starting with your media. This year, when planning your media schedule, what I would say to you is, please think radio. Think radio for massive reach and frequency that will boost any campaign. But it's also time to think more broadly about digital audio, about affordable, tightly targeted opportunities offered by podcasts and digital radio streaming. And the great thing is that commercial radio and audio delivers results for brands at every stage of the marketing funnel, from that large base of radio audiences that will ensure your messages are heard, to the ability to use digital demo and geo-targeting data on podcasts and radio streaming, which will talk selectively to your high-value audiences. Audio has it all covered. And you know, when you're planning radio and audio campaigns, you can do so with confidence, particularly in 2023 when you need to be sure and absolutely certain you can deliver results, because you'll be in great company. These companies, they value their brands, they value their customers, and they're always looking for outstanding transactional results. And they would never run a campaign without radio, without audio. And as I said, you know, if you do the same, you'll be in very good company. I hope in these few minutes I've been able to express my enthusiasm, my excitement for the category. As I said, I'm not naive, I'm not deluded. There are real challenges for all of us in our markets this year. But I'm really confident that with the new opportunities, with the new innovation, with a lot of investment across all the different media sectors, that we're going to have an amazing year. The audio future, I can tell you, is very bright, and I very much hope that you and your clients are part of it. Thank you so much for listening.
everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks. I think I was amazing, incredible, and beautiful, I heard. So I'll take all of those compliments this morning. Before we get into today's session, I just wanted to clarify that there has been no involvement or no use of ChatGPT in the preparation of this presentation. In the spirit of kickoff, here we are today. I'd like to kick off and reset some notions about publishing and news. From a scope perspective, news is so much more than just the breaking news. There are so many categories, verticals and segments that are focused now that are engaged in every single day of a reader's news environment. From a format perspective, advertising inventory and the typical formats of digital and print ad buys are no longer a thing. It's so much more than that, whether it's deep content partnerships, all the way through to understanding and using first-party data to better target and segment your audience, or whether it's integrating the podcast versions of our national major news brands' mastheads. It's so much more and it's evolved, which is why, obviously, news is the unsung hero from all parts of the funnel, and that's what we want to reset today. Whether it's brand recognition, which is traditionally known for, all the way through to the bottom of the funnel and the conversion and sales performance criteria. So just to reset on publishing and news and what it is in its typical form or how we categorise it. Again, it's not just the breaking news, it's not just printed news, it's print, digital, social, how people read and engage with news on all segments, all categories. And you can't beat its reach. Every single day, every single week, every single year, millions of people, many Australians, engage with the news. So much more than many people think, which is why we're trying to reset the notion of no longer people read news. Very, very strong reach. Table stakes components. And I always like to put it in perspective of let's not always compare against other media outlets or channels because we are part of an ecosystem. If you think about what else we do on a typical day, news is consumed and read by so many more people than those who drink milk, and that's all forms of milk, just to clarify, oat, almond, soy, the list goes on these days. Unbeknownst, and for those parents in the room, many more than eating vegetables, many more than listening to radio, yes, we have to put in there, but also drinking coffee, and again, many varieties of coffee these days too. So news is consumed far more than people think, and again, it's not just the breaking news. Table stakes that you have the reach capability, but is it remembered and does it have the impact? Last year we researched or released some research which really showed across all forms of brand memory. On the left you'll see the short-term memory, which is the typical recall component and recognition, all the way to on the right, which is the long-term memory, which is the purchase propensity and the brand lift components. And you can see in news environments, irrespective of short or long-term memory, it's remembered and it has impact. But does it actually work? Again, typical questions that people ask. Last year we also released research which put in the bang for your buck component. And there is no, you're not in the red, you're always getting a positive return when it comes to news. This is an example across a number, and this is all Australian brands, many campaigns and millions of dollars, and the return for news is significantly strong. So when we talk about the bottom of the funnel component, it does drive your performance and your return on investment. So, the reset and the notion of news is so much more than just breaking news. There's so many more formats to think about these days, and that it does drive all parts of the funnel, show that, again, the research we released last year, that the media mix is a little unbalanced, and it's time to reset that notion. The optimised mix for Australian media buyers or Australian brands is to be putting 7.5% into their media mix allocated towards news if they're going to maximise their bang for buck. Now, obviously that changes by category and it goes much deeper than this, but the average is 7.5%. But you don't need to hear from me. There are many more people, much smarter, much more eloquent than me in the room. I'd like to introduce other perspectives, not just the industry perspective. So today we've got the lovely Renee Sycamore, from Executive General Manager from NewsAmp at News Corp, and Lisa Day, Director of Content Partnerships at Nine, to help understand their involvement in this space. And we've also got a CMO perspective here from one of the lovely indie agencies, I might add, who gives their interpretation very briefly about what they think news is.
What Total News gives you is this great diversity. You know, it's not just about being on the front page or on the landing page, it's also about what's in the lifestyle section, what's in travel section. So you get all these great opportunities and different opportunities to connect with your consumer or with your viewer, and they can really put your brand into their life.
So that's one part of the Brains Trust. The other lovely ladies on stage, who are also beautiful, thank you very much, incredible and amazing, are on stage here. So thanks for joining us. I know it is super busy for you guys right now, and it's a little bit weird talking to you from afar. Yeah. So if there's a mic there, I could switch. There is, let's do that. Renee, if I could start with you in terms of how you would describe the news and publishing landscape in 2023.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. Listen, I think we're quite primed. I think we're well positioned to tackle 2023 and beyond. Creating compelling and highly engaging content is our core competency. Our revenue source against that core competency is mature. It's highly competitive, and if you listen to the industry experts, we will only see single-digit growth, within that area. So where we see the opportunity in 2023 is around commerce. If you think about the massive volume of back catalogue content, if you think about the massive volume of content we produce every minute of every day, and you look at that being viable to be transactional, commercial, we believe we have a real leadership position to take in 2023 into commerce media. To put it, I think, in a bit more colourful language, where we see 2023 is news publishing moving from a billboard to a shop front, where we seamlessly integrate and blend and sell your products within our brands and within our platforms and networks. And that's really what Total Commerce is about, and Total Commerce is where you're going to see us start to shift and play. We want to be able to start working with you from, amplification top of funnel all the way down to transaction at the bottom of the funnel.
So it's really taking the friction and the steps out of the process and making it all happen within news, which is kind of cool.
Making it very seamless, yeah. And I think you mentioned before, we want to kind of rebalance that media flywheel, back in favour.
Yep, nice, like it. Bottom of the funnel stuff too, I love it. We talk a lot about content and content partnerships and it being more than just advertising. Lisa, of the last 12 months and an example of a good content partnership and how those integrations have worked.
Well, we've put some examples up here that both Renee and I will talk to. I've the incredible privilege of working across integrated campaigns, and I think this is where also news comes to its own in terms of its diversity of what it can offer. Up on the screen you can see there was an amazing campaign. I think you'll all agree, and I'm sharing this from the learnings, particularly I know it's from a larger agency. We've got some other stuff to share with you, but the banks coming out of the Royal Commission were in a really tricky spot. The consumer trust wasn't there for them. And CBA came to us and they asked us about aligning with a movement as such, right? And it was around coercive abuse. Now, I think one of the things, and I'm sure you've all been frustrated at times when you come to us and we say, well, we can't give cash for comment, we can't, cover that topic. Because it was financial abuse that then led into coercive abuse, we could really deliver this surround sound of conversation and education to an audience that will educate others. And if I look at some of those stats, there was a 38% lift in brand perception for a CBA off the back of that campaign alone. So, really strong, and that's typically what you'd expect from news. But touching on the next slide, if I can, Even if you don't go deep into a content partnership, there's still ways I think you can harness news that have some fun, but give you that cut through. And I love the most recent one you see over there. We all know Novak and his stance on vaccination, and Sportsbet were really clever, you know, and they brought context around the tennis and the AO to push through like that campaign about no vax and donating money to the vaccination program. And again, another one, you know, making fun of Trump in and around the US election. So I think, you know, and Renee will share some examples of some lifestyle examples. It's not as narrow as people think, but it's definitely as incredibly impactful if it's delivered in the right way.
Wonderful, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, listen, like Lisa, we've got a number of fantastic examples and case studies we can draw from. And for both of us, obviously the success of our clients is the best part of our job. I've got one in particular that I'd like to talk to today that is from this cohort, from the IMAA cohort, and that is Yalumba Wine. Now, in 2020, Chimera and Anna in particular, I'm not sure if Anna's in the room, but if you are, hello Anna. Anna approached us with the objective of driving the premium perception of Yalumba Wine. Now, we're very fortunate to have 16.5 million Australians engage with our digital network on any given month. Obviously, that gives us extremely rich data, but what it also allows us to see and tap into is Australian mainstream culture. And what we saw in all of that data in the midst of the pandemic is far from Australians' quench of desire to travel from being dampened, it was heightened. And the data we saw showed a couple of really interesting areas that we ultimately end up tapping into. The first was the travel. We saw a huge spike in search on domestic travel and travel within a kind of limited postcode from where somebody lived. And we saw a huge spike in international food recipes. So people were travelling through their stomachs. So what we did is we merged those insights and we built a campaign, a content-led campaign that was a combination of a bespoke digital bag. We had premium video content. We had a huge amount of editorial, sentiment and support around that social. And what we were able to do was inspire Australians to travel to COVID-affected or lockdown-affected areas, to experience their own backyard, to wine and dine, in those areas, and always with a glass of Yalumba. We had some amazing results, and in fact, we've been in partnership with Kantar for 3.5 years and have just under 100 content campaigns that have been measured independently. This was record-breaking and delivered the best results for us in any Kantar campaign. So I'm just going to read three big stats. So we had an increase of 20% in brand consideration. We had an 8% lift in brand favourability and 9% shift upwards in premium perception, which, as I mentioned, was the core objective. So you don't think this is a one-hit wonder, because I know a lot of people were drinking in COVID lockdown. I think the statistics were something up around 237% increase in alcohol household consumption. Year two, the Chimera team and Anna and her team set some pretty high benchmarks to deliver in year two, and we were able to deliver those in year two as well. And year three is currently in play.
I'll probably just add to that, if I may. I hope you get the impression we both are pretty confident in the results that news can deliver, and we both have invested a lot into effectiveness studies and being able to come back and share numbers with you to prove the proof points around the value that this audience can deliver for you.
I think that's a really good point, and it shows that it's more than just the advertising in its traditional environment as well, right? So the Sportsbet example is good, that it's in a finance section, which is not typically Sportsbet, but they've found the link, and it still has its relevance. Not everything's just the front cover or the homepage takeovers, which is nice when it comes to budgets. A lot of this comes down to the fact that the other asset that news and publishers have particularly strong is the first-party data component. Lisa, do you have any, in terms of first-party data and the value it can bring?
Yeah, look, I think everyone knows at Nine we spent a very long time authenticating our audiences across our digital products via our user wall, registered user wall, and that's given us a great data lake, really. We've consolidated that and centralised it with our DMP, Adobe Audience Manager, those data attributes, and then, you know, really supplemented by a third-party data that really makes it quite, I would say, unrivaled. You've got partners like Equifax, Flybuys, Near, MasterCard to really enrich that data. And it's going to keep happening, you know, and what that means for you, as you know, is we can target very succinctly, you know, people at the right place at the right time with the right message. And really, our goal is to deliver a really strong alternative for you, the best in class for data targeting versus like Google and Facebook in an environment that people trust, simply, and continue to trust.
Well, and often subscribe to in itself, right? So
Yeah.
it's a known customer in a much deeper level than a traditional just you've got their email.
Yeah, and probably added to it, I think news would be doing it as well. Editorial use this a lot in terms of surfacing that content so it's personalised for readers, so you get greater engagement. There shouldn't be under-delivery of campaigns. It also means, like, on a really macro detail editorially, they're changing headlines if they're not getting the traffic to ensure that they're catching those eyeballs. And there's a modernisation out of that. That data we're capturing, we're using for our own benefit to drive future users. So that's about the legacy of, you know, the audience we're attracting.
It's almost a guaranteed audience, right?
Yeah.
It's a sure thing, so it's really nice. You've got the mass reach, but you can go hyper-targeted and guarantee it. Renee, let's switch it up again in terms of looking forward with the industry. In terms of adapting and evolving and innovating, it's something that we've had to do. Everybody has to do, every channel has. How do you think this is going to play out?
Yep. And yeah, you're right, Vanessa, the only constant is change. And listen, I think what we've seen is, you know, we've seen a mass, you know, convergence of both our consumers and our advertisers to further down the funnel. Largely, you know, and more recently, it's been out of a comfort zone from a news publishing or news media perspective. You know, pushing ourselves, you know, down to the funnel has been a little bit out of our wheelhouse, I think. But it's definitely something that we're all reinvesting back in. I know, you know, Lisa's business is, and I know some of the other partners, you know, 7, 10 and ourselves are investing heavily here. If you look back, you know, cast your mind back, you know, maybe a decade to the classifieds, which I know sounds like forever ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. If you look at classified sections, they were mid-funnel and they performed, you know, exceptionally well. But largely, in the last 12 to 15 years, we have been a lot more dominant in that top of funnel. And in fact, you know, and I'll speak probably personally from a news perspective, we've probably had 85% of our function and play at top of funnel and E15 bottom of funnel. That is absolutely going to change and is changing. There is, and I can't plot still from Paul Blackburn, who's about to roll out Decoded in a couple of weeks because he would have my head for it. But there is a significant investment in technology and in the way that we are going to work with our tech and data partners to move significantly, you know, down the funnel. We've seen a lot of revenue dollars shift there with the, you know, digital moves and last click attribution. And we need to, as I said before, we need to, you know, rebalance that flywheel, and we need to do that by answering the needs of, you know, our advertisers and our customers. So, again, I know it's a bit broad, but I've always warned within an inch of my life by Paul. But there will be a lot, and you know, and I'm aware of some of the stuff that Lise and her business are doing. That you're going to see a big play into this space from media publishing.
Thank you. We're running tight on time, and I'm conscious that you guys get to your drinks. We wouldn't want to get in the way of that. So I'm going to merge the last, if you can both have a comment on the last, I'm going to merge 2 questions. One is, what's the key takeaway? What's the one message you want everybody in the room to be aware of off the back of our discussion today? And second, 20 seconds on ChatGPT.
fun. Okay. Probably simply, I hope you recognise there the confidence that we both have in our platforms and our products and our commitment to delivering results. News, you're probably well known, gets 3 times more attention by nature just because of the product it is. And I know sometimes that scares people because they think, gosh, I don't want to put an ad for Flight Centre outside, if there's an airline crash. Frankly, we're not doing our job if we're not keeping you across that. We're not doing our job if we're not reaching out to you and asking to move that. We do that, we pick up the phone. But what you're getting is cut through. And you can do that in a playful manner that I showed earlier, or you can do it in an in-depth, thought-provoking, change of perception with something that's a bit more meaningful. Or as, Renee was talking about, transactional in terms of delivering results. So don't be afraid of news, because you can harness it for good and impact, would be my leaving message. And GPT, well, actually, I'll come back to that. You answer first.
Thanks, Lise. Listen, I think kind of the big takeaways that I'd love to leave with everyone is that news actually is not a platform. It's not a platform. It's a thriving ecosystem across many platforms. Print, TV, audio, digital, social. It is a consistent high performer. If you actually look at audience volumes and audience engagements over the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, it is very, very consistent, which is really, really important in brand building. It works for both short and long-term campaigns. It's adapting. It is absolutely adapting to meet the needs of our customers and our advertisers. I said to Vanessa before, I'm going to be a bit crude and say, news it's a bloody sure thing. It really is. So I think, have that at the top of mind. And last, just a bit of fun. News is not full of middle-aged white men, and this is nothing against middle-aged white men at all. I love middle-aged white men. It is not full of middle-aged white men, and it's not created, the content's not created for middle-aged white men. I'd love people to see the people that I get to work with every day. It's very diverse, and we are absolutely here to create great content for everyday Australians.
So GPT, look, 9, like everyone's watching that. It's too early to kind of have an opinion on it. But interestingly, funny enough, AFR ran a poll, a reader survey, right? We know AFR, leading business decision makers, and asked them what they thought about it. So what was interesting was 39% of them said they were really unsure and it was a wait and see. Now, these are decision makers in the business market. 35% said they thought it could be used for good, and then I think the leftover. It was nearly split into 3s. People were really unsure, and it was a wait and see. So it's early days. So we're not rushing into it. We'll have to wait until it's right and decide what it is. But we're not. We're keeping an open mind.
Well, I'm personally obsessed with it, and I'm driving everybody mad. I'm using ChatGPT for everything. And listen, I think the great privilege of working in this industry and how quickly things move is we're all going to have the privilege of watching what GPT can do for us, for our businesses, for functions within our businesses. At the moment, it is very much a complementary tool, and I think if you know where and how to point it, it is very useful. It's definitely, I can't see, not in the immediate future, not replacing any of us, but if we use it well, I think we can really get a leg up. From a business perspective, we're definitely experimenting, as you would imagine, in the newsroom. So there is, experimental programs happening right now. But we're also looking at it for, we've got events and experiences within News Corp. We even mucked around with a brief. We got a brief from one of our clients, and we threw the brief into ChatGPT, and we actually got some pretty good ideas. So I think let's wait and see and use it as a complementary tool as it evolves, and we can all evolve with it.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for having us. Hopefully you got a lot out of today.
First, I'd like to thank Sam for not having me present over a pool of animals and an open bar. This is slightly easier than my task at Digital Deep Dive, so thank you for that. Though we have got a sparrow in the way, so... All right, so we're going to talk you through some of the I won't even call them, some of them are digital, but industry topics, issues, trends, opportunities that hopefully will be useful for you. I'm joined by two of my team. I'm sure you're all sick of hearing from me, so I thought I should bubble up some of the people who do the real work at the IAB. We've got 8 amazing people in the team, and I'm joined by Natalie Stanbury, who's our Director of Research, and that's going to talk a little bit, bubble up some of the recent research that we've done from an industry point of view and give you a bit of a summary of particularly buy-side trends. And Sarah Wallerton, who's our Director of Policy and Reg Affairs, she's going to talk you through some of the structural changes in the industry that you should be aware of. Not scared of, but aware of. So, and I'm just going to give a little bit of an opening. We also are putting the interactive back in the Interactive Advertising Bureau, and we have a quiz for you. So just to wake you up, get ready with your phones. We have a 5-question quiz that's really tough. No challenge, but I gave it to the team yesterday, so if you don't do well, don't panic. The IAB staff also struggled with it. It's a mixture of speed and accuracy, so jump in with your answers quickly, and we'll kick off with the quiz. The winner of the quiz will receive, it's all about training, which is great, seeing all the industry bodies coming together to really increase the capability in our industry. So the winner of the quiz will win for themselves or one of their team members a seat at our new micro-credential. So university and industry collaborated micro-credential that looks at programmatic advertising and trading. So really deep dive into a look and an understanding and platform experience of programmatic advertising. So value of $1,250. So get amongst it. So QR code, it will bring up a Slido page. You may need to flick over to the quiz tab once you get there. And people at home can play along as well. All right. Okay. Isn't it? I've got Beck. Beck, are you... Just Beck's playing, so I don't know if this is rigged or not. There we go. There we go. I'll let people come in. All right. So if you're just putting your name, you'll need to let me know afterwards. If you're Nick, there might be 10 Nicks coming up to me afterwards, but we will trust your honesty. All right, I'm going to get on with it. First question. We did a study last year looking at the impact of the digital advertising industry on the overall economy, consumer benefits, business benefits, etc. How much did that contribute in 2021? I'm only going to give you 20 seconds. Answers in. Lock it in. All right. Okay, the majority got it right. Well done. About 4% of GDP for Australia, digital advertising industry. So be proud of the industry you work in. All right, leaderboard. Caroline B. I think I know who that is. The winner will be an IMAA member, just letting you know, but vendors play along. All right. A quick look at the digital investment market this is for financial year 2022. We will put out our calendar year results in the next couple of weeks. This is just a reminder of the diversity that is available in digital advertising, but also to give you a feel and a benchmark of the dollars that are going across the board. So you see that search, that big component there. Video has been the superstar over the last few years. Video has a myriad of different options in there, as do the other pieces of the pie. But just to give you a feel of that $14 billion market and how it's being distributed across digital. And one thing I would like to say, you know, the IAB and digital is really, we work so closely with our other industry partners, with all the other channels. I guess what you'd claim as sort of digital spend is now about 70% of the ad market. So it's really not a channel versus channel thing. We work really closely with radio, with news, with all of them. So our aim here is to, I guess, lift skills, knowledge across all of those. So I just wanted to put that in. Seeing Vanessa's ripping off share off other people, I'm giving it back. A really quick look at how the content market, so the publisher market, inventory is being bought. My main aim for showing this is there's been a gradual growth in programmatic, so you can see the top two lines, but particularly over the last year or so, the fastest sort of growing area within the mix of buying direct with or buying with publishers is that programmatic guaranteed area. I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, because that control, that understanding, that real control of inventory and where you want to be is becoming a bigger thing in market. Market growth. I think last year I showed you a chart of different channels and what we're expecting to see in 2023. This is sort of, I'm not putting numbers on there because I'm not going to be held accountable like PwC, but a bit of a mix of the different channels that we're seeing from a growth point of view. Look, I know everyone is incredibly nervous around the market this year, and when I was up here last year, it was just, there was just money flying everywhere. This year is very different. It's a considered market. Everyone's going to have to be smarter, work harder. But we are still seeing incredible growth locally and globally in the retail media space, lots of opportunities there. Video will continue to have a really healthy area, but I'd almost put video, programmatic digital out of home and audio as sort of almost equal in that regard. Huge opportunities in those channels. And then there'll be growth in everything, but it'll be definitely more tempered than it was last year. All right, question 2, you ready? QR code if you've lost it, otherwise if you're still in there, that's all good. All working? Just checking technically, yes, we're all good? Okay, so which state or territory has the highest daily online usage? So percentage of people in that state or territory that are most likely to be online each day. I need some little music here, little quiz music. All right, I'm going. Oh, all right, so ACT. All the polys, all the uni students, everyone down there, they're online. So there we go. Bit of a shake up for the leaderboard. There we go. Anyone could still win. All right. In terms of consumer usage, so the IAB is obviously constantly looking at consumer trends. About 92% of the population are going online, looking at ad-supported environments every day. The complicated thing now is that you've got that sort of quite consistent penetration, is the device overlap and being really smart around planning that. So we've got a beautiful chart there that shows in the middle, 28% of Australians are accessing digital content from 4 devices, and there's a mixture of a whole different different elements there. So just thinking about planning and thinking about changes in data, changes in tracking, and just being really clever around that cross-environment tracking. In terms of consumption of video and audio, I thought I'd put this up there. It's a nice one for Ford. In particular, it does show video and audio being incredibly strong in terms of that consumption, but really different usage, both in age and what they're doing. So we will supply all these slides to you, but it's a really good, if you get anything out of this, it's the diversity of opportunities that are out there if you go looking and if you've got time. And I'm going to hand over to Nat, who's going to give you a feel of what the buy side's thinking, feeling, etc.
Thanks, Gay. The IAB conduct regular online surveys amongst agencies on their usage and attitudes of different forms of digital advertising. And I want to thank you all for participating in these industry surveys, as they really help us prioritise our industry activities and white papers and training. I'm going to share today some common themes across 4 of our studies, our State of the Nation studies on video, audio, game, and digital out-of-home advertising. And you can download the full results of these studies from the IAB website. So over the years, we've seen continued gradual increase in agencies' consideration of these digital formats. Agencies are saying that that usage is driven by better targeting, extended reach, engagement, and brand building capabilities. Digital advertising is expected to work hard across all stages of the marketing funnel, but brand building objectives are definitely the most common for digital campaigns. Increasingly, digital formats are being planned and bought in combination with each other and with other media. So these agencies and clients are really getting that benefit of that higher ROI lift of having an integrated and multi-channel approach. Of course, as Gay's mentioned, buying programmatically has increased over time, and they're getting the benefits of data and targeting there, operational efficiency and flexibility. There's a huge appetite for experimentation with an ever-increasing number of creative formats, and agencies are really open to testing these different creative types. There's a diverse range of signals, and I'm going to talk about signals for targeting and creative a little more. There is room to improve fit-for-purpose creative. So we see agencies often don't adjust their creative to suit the environment that their advertising appears. And we know that creative is a dominant driver of advertising effectiveness. So it is really worth putting that extra effort to optimise to the environment. And finally, measurement is a common challenge, including having cross-screen tools, standardised metrics, and evidence of case studies. Evidence of case studies of effectiveness. The deprecation in signals is also making measurement more complex. You can see here that agencies are using an increasing number of measurement tools to assess their digital advertising campaigns. In a post-cookie world, successful measurement will require us to combine different measurement techniques to be able to get the full picture of advertising effectiveness. Our industry studies have found that in preparation for the retirement of third-party cookies, there's a movement towards using resilient measurement techniques. So we've seen the usage of market mix modelling and brand lift studies increase, while the usage of multi-touch attribution has declined due to the challenges around this technique. So we're going to pause for another quick quiz now. Jump back into your Slido app there. Getting ready. So before we talk more about data signals, which of the following data signals do you think is most commonly used by Australian marketers and agencies? Range of options there for you to pop in. Speed and accuracy, the name of the game. Ready? Okay, let's go. Oh, you're all very clever. Definitely got the correct answer there. Our leaderboard, Shana, very well done. So in answer to that quiz question, demographics are the most used data signal. We've got 8 in 10 of our respondents said that, followed very closely by 7 in 10 respondents saying that first-party data is being used to inform targeting. So the information from these slides is available from our Data State of the Nation survey, which is also available on the IAB website. So how prepared are we for the retirement of third-party cookies? Confidence is high, so most people feel that they're prepared to target audiences at scale without third-party cookies in 2024. Most respondents also said that they have not slowed down their preparations in response to Google's shifted timelines. And how are we preparing? So the industry is increasingly looking at privacy-friendly tech options. Respondents here have the highest involvement with contextual targeting solutions, but there are other emerging techniques as well. So the industry not yet fully engaged with data clean rooms, but these offer the opportunity for multiple parties to share data in a privacy compliant way. We've got a higher proportion of respondents here also exploring those Google Privacy Sandbox proposals. So I'm going to hand over pretty shortly to Sarah to give you a bit of an update on privacy, but we're going to pause firstly for one more quiz, or a couple more quizzes. Second last one, so get ready to join in. So what does the acronym SDA stand for? Bit of a techie one here. Okay, we're in. Ooh, maybe a little bit of education we got to do on that one. That's okay. So SDA is seller-defined audiences, which is an addressability specification that allows publishers and data providers to scale first-party data responsibly and reliably. So I'm now going to show you the leaderboard. We've got Ben there. Very well done, Ben. And I'll now hand over to Sarah.
Thanks, Nat, and good morning, everyone. So we've all heard a lot about privacy lately. There have been an increase in data breaches, of course, last year, changing consumer expectations, spurring on changes in business practices, increased scrutiny by regulators around the world, and of course our own Privacy Act review. So some of you might be wondering where things are up to here in Australia, and the short answer is our Privacy Act review is imminent. So the Attorney General's Department submitted its recommendations to the Attorney General at the end of last year, basically suggesting a way forward in Australia. And we expect to see draft legislation to implement changes very soon. And while we don't know exactly what will be in that report and what to expect, we can expect tougher laws, particularly on things like increased obligations on organisations to treat personal information fairly and reasonably. So shifting that obligation from consumers more towards organisations. Stricter guidance on how long organisations can hold personal information for, and some of that's a direct response to some of the data breaches last year. Relevant to agencies with turnover under 3 million, the government is looking at the small business exception as well, so not sure if that will continue to exempt businesses from the obligations in the Privacy Act. And all of that's particularly relevant as well, of course, because last year, on top of the Privacy Act review changes, the penalties for breaches have also increased. So prior to last year, they were 2.2 million per breach. They're now up to 50 million per breach. So this is really an area that the entire industry will need to work together, keep up to date, and make sure that in the upcoming review that the changes are, workable for our industry. On transparency, that's the next sort of area that I've got to talk about. There's also an increased government scrutiny on this, essentially on programmatic advertising and the technologies used in programmatic advertising. So you may have heard the ACCC in 2021 inquired into competition in ad tech services and made a number of recommendations in that regard. Including in that, in their recommendations, they have suggested that industry develop voluntary standards for transparency in programmatic advertising. And that's an area where IAB is working closely with advertisers and looking at a range of options to make sure that advertisers can track their investment more closely. part of that concern, of course, arose because in the UK, ISBA commissioned an audit by PwC that looked into exactly where spend was going. It took them 18 months or so, and as a result of that study, PwC reported that there was a 15% delta where it wasn't clear where advertiser spend was going. But the good news is that in January this year, there was an updated report released from ISBA and PwC, and that found that having updated PwC's methodology, that missing delta is now down to 3%. So if there's a problem, it's much smaller than what they had originally suggested in their first report. But it is an area that we're very concerned to make sure that we work with advertisers and improve transparency in the industry and make sure that the platform is trustworthy. And just a third final issue that I wanted to mention, sector-specific rules. So I realise this is generally an area where it'll be your client's responsibility to make sure that they're complying with any laws that are in place, but it's probably good for agencies to be aware of as well in terms of the obligations around content creative as well as placement of ads. And really it's just a couple of ones that I wanted to mention that are happening at the moment. So first of all, as of the 30th of March, there'll be a requirement there'll be new gambling requirements. So the existing requirement to include gamble responsibly as a tagline on gambling ads is going to be replaced by a bunch of new taglines. So that will be required to be implemented by 30th of March. The responsibility will be on wagering service providers, but that will need to be included in all creative. Whoops. Sorry. And the other one that I just thought was good to mention as well was around food and beverage advertising. So there's a real push at the moment for stricter rules on junk food advertising. In the UK, rules have been introduced to essentially ban junk food advertising after 9 p.m. The law's been introduced, but they don't actually come into effect until October 2025 in the UK. There's nothing similar in Australia at the moment. There's no proposed legislation, but it is something that government is talking to industry about, so it's just something to be aware of. And of course, lots of other areas as well, like therapeutic goods and alcohol advertising, where there are specific rules. So that's an area where we will work hard to make sure that we keep everyone up to date on where things are up to. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. I think it's just really important to keep all across that, particularly as agencies working with clients. The more you're informed, the more you're sort of trusted advisors, the better your business. All right, we're nearly done. Ups and downs, but I'm going to start with the downs. So this is just a list of areas that I've been working on along with colleagues in other IAB markets around the world in terms of good and bad news. So let's start with the bad news. So, we've talked about consumer wariness, pressure on consumer spending. We had another lift in interest rates yesterday. So that continues to bubble along. SME spending slowdown we're seeing in a lot of markets around the world. Obviously that'll impact quite a lot of your businesses. About 44% of the digi-ad market is actually from SMEs, so it's a big factor across the industry. We've talked about signal loss, coming down from our high of buying online everything while we're stuck at home. So that's still a little bit of readjustment there in the e-commerce space. A bit of tech correction and expensive VC money or lack of VC money, and then different impacts of particular sectors, whether it be supply chain issues or particular things like crypto where there's market changes there. Good news. Globally, there is spending in the luxury area. So, while there's tough times, there's a very buoyant luxury market at the moment, and also spend by travel advertisers and entertainment sectors as well. We've talked about the new money going into retail media. The inflation area is inconsistent across the board, which does give opportunities. So really do interrogate from an economic point of view what's going on with your client sectors. The Chinese market's really interesting. Often we think here we go straight to money into Australia, higher education, Chinese students coming out. But there is a growing need for the Chinese sellers to reach international markets. So again, opportunities there. We'll continue to see shifts across the video market. And then AI, I'm not going to call it ChatGPT because it's broader than that, right? So AI is a fascinating area, and I think from an agency point of view, particularly in tough times, anything that can achieve efficiency without taking away from creativity should be investigated. So I'm really excited to see how the creative people in our industry make the most of this, because I think it's going to be fantastic if it's done in the right way. There'll obviously need to be guardrails, all that sort of things, but we're smart, curious, creative people, so let's see what we can do with this. Last question, are we ready? All right, really sexy one for the last one. How many privacy principles are there in the current Australian Privacy Act? I'm sure you all know this, it's all top of mind. A few more seconds. And then we will have a winner. Okay, again, we've got a bit of work to do. 13. All right, congratulations if you got that right, whether it be by a guess or knowledge. Okay, we have Ben F as the winner. Is Ben F in the room? Ben F. We will track down Ben F. Congratulations to those top winners. Well done. If you want deeper information on any of the sort of digital areas, we've got a few free events coming up for agencies, audio and digital out of home, so please register. We'd love to see you there. We love our IMAA crowd, so thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sam. That's a joke I used in 2019, and I've got a little chubbier since then, so I'll take a fat Jason's datum any day of the week. Guys, thank you for your time here today. It's great to be with you both physically and digitally to talk about cinema and at this kickoff. And I think it's probably, this time last year I stood in front of you going, yeah, we're going to have a great year. And there was certainly a little bit of doubt in that. We come off a frankly horrendous 18-month period. But the name of the session today in terms of kickoff is really where our business is going this year. And we've started incredibly well. But we've laid that foundation from last year. So if you are, here's our little agenda that we're going to take through, and we're going to end on a sizzle, as always. Val Morgan presentations either end on or what you guys really come for. So what happened in 2022? Well, we're back, and we're back in a really, really big way. So blockbusters returned, and they returned significantly. Quick show of hands for those that didn't go to Top Gun. Shame on you. It's probably still in cinemas somewhere because it's bloody good, but performed hugely. And any time you have 3 titles in the top 5 of all time, not just post-pandemic, is a pretty bloody good year outside of the first year of measurement. So, we had that this year. This time last year, Spider-Man, Top Gun, and then we've bookended the year with Avatar, that is still going and has done over 4.5 million people across the country, with 50% of that delivered in 3D technology, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So blockbusters came back, and they came back big for us. Key audiences also bounced back strongly, and what we saw from the beginning of the pandemic was really around that driven by youth. So 18 to 39s continue to be our key demo, and over 52% of our audience is delivered in that demographic, and we consistently see this time after time across huge titles. And sometimes that composition of titles can exceed over 65% of certain films. So we really are the home of youth in that respect. And then the cinema release strategy wins out. So this time last year, there was still a fair bit of concern probably in terms of how studios might look at cinema release strategies. We've moved from 90 days exclusive theatrical window and I've stabilised at that 45-day period. And what that really gives us, and really the underpinning of this, is the business model around having theatrical as part of that global marketing mix to launch films and franchises. It is not the same as going direct to streaming. And some streaming examples middle of the year opened up the old foe of piracy. So we're pleased that that has stabilised, given us a lot of confidence, and you guys a lot of confidence in terms of our audience delivery. And we saw some huge performances of key franchises. These are just some of the big ones that we delivered beyond our big three, but Batman again, we had Jurassic Park. Minions spawned a trend called Gentle Minions, where young blokes were dressing up as suits coming to Minions. I don't quite get it, but hey, thanks for your patronage. But good to see some really consistent performers, particularly in that middle year with things like Thor and Jurassic World. But these three huge cultural media moments really defined us in 2022. And it's the excitement and the build on these films releasing that really sort of set the stage. So, you know, we're really excited by this, and what this does give us is a real platform to talk around the impact of your brands as being part of culture. And those audiences, as I mentioned, but truly bounce back. So youth is 52% of our total demographic, of our total audience, and that is consistent. So we are 3 times more youthful than linear TV. Something to ponder in terms of where you look from an investment perspective, particularly in 1839 demographic, as we can deliver that in addition to the traditional digital channels. Families shows a consistent boom over school holiday periods, where we know that we will deliver a 45 or somewhere between a 40 and a 45% increase over school holiday periods to normal times. And then 24% of our 22 admits were in the AB demographic on titles like Banshees of Inisherin. A subplot really emerging in our audiences is really the cooled audience as well. So culturally and linguistically diverse represents 25% of our total cinema-going audience. And that is going through an absolute boom period. Pathan has just registered the highest Australian box office at all time, which is really testament to A, the volume of content, but also the quality. And as China emerges from a pandemic lockdown, we're seeing a huge amount of content scheduled to come through. They've just had the second largest Chinese lunar holiday period with 925 million Aussie dollars over a 10-day period. That's almost, I think that's about 80% of our total box office of the year. So it's the scale of that, the country and the content that comes from it is a really exciting opportunity. So what about 2023? Well, this is what we think will happen. So we are going to see some sexy stuff like stability. And normally we don't start with stability in a cinema presentation because it's not sexy. But it's sexy to us at this point in time. And that means consistent performers, locked-in dates, audiences that we know that we will deliver across the content slate. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to find that every title stays where it is. Pre-pandemic, there were always different moves as films jostled for box office space and windows. But that stability is truly back in terms of the slate. Cultural moments to boom. Being part of, Aussies have this incredible love affair and affinity with culture, with Australian cinema as part of the cultural entertainment suite. And we genuinely see a huge opportunity in some massive titles, 5 Marvel titles this year. Tom Cruise, our Lord, God and Saviour, I won't have a bad word said against him, even despite Scientology. But he is, you know, with Mission Impossible 7, that is another massive one that we expect to boom really, to go strong. Return of some nostalgia. So today is Sam's favourite day in February. It's not Valentine's Day, as you guys would know. It's the launch of Magic Mike 2. Did better than I thought it would, Sam, to be honest. But those things, that nostalgia, we've got Barbie. There's all kinds of good stuff coming that ticks the nostalgia box. Indiana Jones 5, so Sparrow, you can dust off that indie hat, and I would say get your whip out, but that's kind of weird. And then really Australia to continue that global growth story. So we have rebounded better in Australia and New Zealand, better than any other global market. And the reason for that is what you're sitting in today, is the seats, the experience, etc. So we hope that this will continue, and we do see ourselves consistently performing this year to the tune of about 95% of 2019 audiences. And the big storylines. and why we're confident of growth. And despite, the guys, everybody, all the presenters have touched on the sense of potential economic woe, and I really think sort of we are well positioned to ride this out. So first of all, we've got the content, and that's fundamentally crucial to our business. It drives audiences. We've got those cultural moments that people want to be a part of. We've got the attention. We did a lot of work around attention with amplified intelligence, which provides real value for you guys. And then there's the experience that is our secret sauce, if you will. This just gives you a bit of a sense. You'll get a little bit more of the sense in the sizzle, so I won't spend too much time, but it really is something for everybody with a diverse set of storylines, well set out content themes, some really cool individual titles, some incredible production experiences. So we're really excited by that. And those cultural moments that I mentioned really do power brand performance. So not only do they deliver guaranteed performance, and I mean that in two ways. One, in that we guarantee your audiences. So we are not going to be a pain on your schedules when you're looking for things that don't perform. We will always deliver that audience that you buy from us. But also guaranteed performance in terms of where audiences will come to. So this year versus 19, 26%, we're forecasting a 26% growth of top 5 titles as a total percentage share of audience. So be on these ones because they are going to smash it. We forecast 3.2 million people, and Avatar, it's done 4.6 so far, and it's still going. Seasonal strengths. So we know that there's an uplift in performance, and the way that content is scheduled speaks directly to audiences, families, retail periods at Christmas. All of that stuff makes absolute sense to be part of that. And most importantly, being part of these huge cultural moments drives incremental brand benefits. So we know from our varied research that we have that you will drive somewhere between a 20 and 30% better performance than just doing a standard audience buy with us. These are some of the cultural moments of the year. Obviously fairly varied in terms of whatever else you guys individually like. There is the Lord God himself in the middle, Mr. Tom Cruise. But there's also great stuff like Oppenheimer, which is coming from Christopher Nolan. So a really exciting time to be alive. And we are going to be speaking a lot more about the benefits of your brands being part of culture, particularly beyond looking at it from a different perspective to what might just be consistent in culture in this country. Here's our audiences. That content will drive audiences, and we have the content. So, we are expecting to be up year on year. As I said, we're getting back to about 95% of 2019. It's a good story, and we expect to continue to build on that. And one of the most important features of last year was the work that we did with amplified intelligence. And attention, I think, was an incredible moment for the industry to get behind, as it took us from the idea of OTS and viewability, and it's that next obvious evolution in trying to understand the true value of media. And so what does it mean? It really simply means every impression counts. So every time you buy an impression from us, you know that you will get true value for that dollar that you've paid. Now, we are fairly unique, as you would imagine, in that we deliver total attention. So I'm not talking about active or passive. That's for the strategists in the room to decide whether they want more active or passive. I'm just talking about us giving you guys the canvas to not deliver any wastage. So all the way through your creative, whether it's 15s, 30s, or as we love, 60s, 90s, and 120s, we will deliver you value. And that is fairly unique. In the chart on the left, you see the decay. Lots of other channels deliver high percentages of non-attention as you get past 50% mark. So we've got an interesting perspective in terms of how this works. But we also know that we deliver sustained attention through creatives and pre-show. So that is true value, and what we're seeking to use attention is to really understand its impact as part of your screen planning matrix. So how should cinema not be considered as a nice to have, but be considered as a consistent must-have part of your schedules? The second part is experience, and we think about it in these 3 ways, really. And one is, I'll go straight to the middle one there, is really like sitting in these rooms, recliners. That is why we've recovered better than most other markets, well, all other markets. But there's a real opportunity to go deeper beyond just on screen. So if you think about, this is an extreme screen experience. We've got Lux and Gold Class. You've got the motion censored with D-Box and 4DX. You've got the family hangouts. You've got all these types of unique experiences that are unique to us, that offer ranges of opportunities to engage with. On the left there, you've got entertainment experiences. So we are committing to double down in this space. And we will be doing more activations external to what we call the hard tops, which is what you're sitting in today. So there's Moonlight, the Move-In series. We've got lots of ambitious plans in that space, and it really does present an interesting opportunity to collaborate and get the brand front and center in front of consumers. And then technology. So just 2 weeks before COVID, we launched a concept called CineGame, which was unfortunate. So we are relaunching that in market. We've got a case study coming out in New Zealand, so we're excited to be able to bring that. And what it isn't is reach, but what it is engagement and how you close the loop, and you also attract different audiences. And a couple of just other, I think probably more business hygiene things that we've been working on. So the Global Cinema First is our trust and transparency partnership with CEDU. So that is us measuring, being able to provide to you third-party reports that that show you that your spots went to air at certain times, locations, films, and with the right creative. We've got that validation of play, but we're also including audience in that. We're going to be rolling out, it rolled out on Hoyts towards the end of last year, but we're also targeting and rolling out other of the major exhibitors and major independents. We've got deeper insights of Cinetam Live, our Cinetam Live planning platform, which is available for you guys to use with your clients to understand beyond just high-level demographics, what are the behaviours and what are the right films to choose. We've done a partnership with Roy Morgan back in 2019 to launch this. So it's absolutely there for you and your clients to use, that builds more interesting segments, more psychographic segments that can show the right types of titles, moments and genres for you guys to target. And then increasingly we're focused on changing the way that we can schedule, but also the speed in which your creative gets to site. So there will be more flexibility and speed in terms of how we do things, which is a real step forward for the business. And then lastly, I want to just touch on ESG, which is a really big project that we worked on last year across the Hoyts and Val Morgan Group. And noting that all other cinema partners have been extensively working on it, given the impact of our businesses on the environment. This is just a very quick headline view of our sustainability framework. We think about it in 4 areas in terms of green screens, which is about the planet. Those are our targets. But obviously we've got a great responsibility, particularly with waste, and obviously looking at how we get to that net carbon zero footprint. People power is about creating the right mindset and embedding that philosophy within our company. And then stories and partnerships is really the interesting one for us. So Val Morgan, yes, cinema, but also out of home and digital. So we've got this 17 million Australians each week that are across our platforms, and we are creating an awful lot of concepts around the 5 key pillars of Val Morgan that really resonate, A, with our own business, B, with our audiences, and hopefully C, with you guys. But it's about creating good stories for good and leveraging our platform to normalise the narratives and actually make some longer lasting change. That is a whole entire separate conversation, so we'd love to reach out to you guys if there's any interest. A couple of these initiatives, very simply, from a cinema perspective, start at First Nations Film Festival. This is about celebrating the incredible story and content creators coming from this community. Mates of the Movies is around simply mental health. So we're going to be working on a concept for October in partnership with a couple of our charity partners. That really coming to the cinema is first and foremost around escapism and getting involved in story. So it's a really good, positive story from a content perspective. And then Cinema Green Screen is around creating a filmmaker's a chance to showcase their low carbon footprint films. But there is more beyond that. And I think, if this is right, this should be the sizzle. But guys, if it isn't, we'll keep talking, but if it is, I'm going to leave you with 3 things. So, if you doubt that cinema isn't back, don't. We've got lots of data to prove it. Audiences are watching in a big, big way. And we've improved our business at no end of sight, which is how do we work with you on a more consistent basis? How do we think around how we not just use it on a big national, perhaps not on a national basis, but more targeting cinemas as part of the community? You don't have to have $300,000 to do cinema well. Is that the Oscar buzz? You don't have to have $300,000 to do cinema well. You can do always on, target strong audience, hard to reach audiences on other channels. So we're excited by that in terms of our capability and ability to work in a variety of different ways with you guys.
Hey, you want to
And it was it.
Phil, this is just static frames with darkness in between. It creates an illusion of motion, an illusion of life. So you don't see the darkness. And nothing happens without light.
What is this place?
Where are we?
Behold, the king of the Koopas!
It's showtime! Introducing the star of our show! Let's get down to business! Ow! I don't got no time to play around. What is this? Must be a circus in town. They shut the shit down. These clowns. Can I get a witness?
Now go fight for your family. Go fight for the world.
What's your name again?
Whitney Elizabeth Houston.
I might have just heard the greatest voice of her generation.
Listen up! All you big dick Mr. Man! Who wants to see me fight a fucking snake?
Fuck yeah! You're talking to me, are you?
What the hell's going on with you, me feckin' brother?
It's dull, Siobhan.
But he's always been done.
Now, if I've done something to you, just tell me what I've done to you.
But you didn't do anything to me. I just don't like you no more.
Why does he not want to be friends with you no more? What is he, 12?
You can't just love something, you also have to take care of it.
You ready, John?
Yeah.
There is no call we do not answer. There is no faith that we betray.
You need cool.
Been a long time, Doc.
Baby, I'm not I'm gonna send back.
There's something I never told you.
So, what's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
What is that again?
It's an owl bear.
Let's go.
One could be greater than a king. Be warned. There is evil here.
I'm glad he's on our side.
You should probably run.
This one's dangerous. But whatever happens, we'll be ready.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. Hope we're all doing well. I'm going to talk a little bit about data, research and insights. So actually looking at one of our global annual trends reports, Connecting the Dots. So just to introduce myself first. So I've been with the business for about 6 years now, so based out of our HQ in London. Recently, we had the opportunity to set up a Singapore office to help service our indie agencies across the APAC region, especially Australia. So I'm working with a mixture of agencies from creative to digital to full service and media agencies, really helping them understand the value that you can get from GWI data. So a little bit about GWI as a whole. So we're very much a audience insights technology company. So actually, globally, we're representative of 2.7 billion people globally. And what we enable people to do is understand their target audiences. So we actually have one of the world's largest studies that looks into the digital consumer. So we have a heavy online focus. And actually, we've got a very in-depth Australian data set. So actually what we do, we make this available through an intuitive subscription-based platform, which houses over now 200,000 different data points. So you can actually create your truly unique audiences within the platform to help grow your business, understand your target audiences, and improve your client strategies. So let's kick off with our first trend. So are we spending less time online? Now, if we move to the next slide here, as you can see on the chart, internet usage has traditionally seen steady growth. But in recent years, we've seen a plateau or even a decline in some world regions. So this trend can be put down to partially to the COVID pandemic, as people have less free time now and are using the internet less for everyday activities. However, it's worth noting that certain online activities have actually experienced a boost in popularity. So a good example of that is the gaming industry. COVID offered a lot of brands an opportunity to onboard new players who stuck around after lockdowns. So we actually saw a similar thing within social media and different platforms in the social world, as well as other media forums like audio, as well as streaming services as well. So ultimately, the way we're using the internet is evolving, and these shifts in behavior can have a significant implication on the future. So that brings me nicely on to our next trend, looking into social media behaviors. So if we go back to 2014, where American author Susan Phillips made a bold prediction that in the future we won't be searching for products, but companies will find us through social media. At the time, this seemed a bit far-fetched, as most people started their shopping journeys on the likes of Google or Amazon. So fast forward to today, and even internal data at Google itself show that nearly half of young people turn to TikTok and Instagram instead of Google to search for ideas. So looking at social here, so now it's one of the so many people's shopping journeys first stop. While finding information is still the top reason to go online, it's actually not as powerful as it used to be. So in fact, the number of consumers who say they research products before making a purchase has dropped 8% since 2020. So while Gen Z is more likely to buy online than baby boomers, they're less likely to describe shopping as a top benefit of the internet. Instead, they value the likes of a community or interests, and the community vibe and interests. So in other words, they start their search from a place of curiosity and expect to be led down a fun rabbit hole of new ideas, rather than being directed to a list of brands or products. So, moving on from to a world without limitations, looking at the world of the metaverse. You won't need a VR headset to help this come to life. Hopefully you'll find out a little bit more information on who these people are. So when you're looking at the metaverse, it's first worth looking at who's the interested in participating and what the implications are of that. So early metaverse adopters were considered as male, high-income households, generally tech-driven individuals, while actually those who prefer to spend time online are much more diverse than that. So this means there's a greater emphasis on, the metaverse for future opportunities, like social pioneered, to bring different communities together online. So the lessons learned from early virtual worlds highlighted how important online identity is to users, where they like to disclose as much or as little as their real-world personalities they choose to. So actually, it's why it's so important to welcome on board those users who may not have engaged with virtual spaces yet, and the responsibility lies both internally and externally, from stakeholders to actually act upon this and do so. So, moving on from the virtual world to one that's very real, and if you had cost of living on your mind, you'd be correct. So, we'll be looking at what consumers might treat themselves to this year. So, it's no secret that during a recession, people's priorities can shift. Some products and services were once considered essentials have become more like treats or even expendables. So what can we expect for 2023? When it comes to splurging on a budget, clothing is the top choice for all generations and genders. While price is important, consumers are also looking for quality when it comes to clothing. So in fact, our research shows that having quality is actually a top purchase driver here. So when brands are focusing on messaging, it should be focused around durability and quality in their items to appeal to consumers who want to make the most out of their money. Cool, so coming to our final trend, sustainability, the environment, always a hot topic. But actually what we found in recent years, while most individuals will tell you they care about the environment, patterns have emerged when asking millions of people about their attitudes towards the environment over time and how that's actually changed. We've actually, in fact, in the most of the countries we track, we've seen that now fewer people say that helping the environment is as important to them than compared to before the pandemic. So, and actually in every country we track, the number of people who expect brands to be eco-friendly have decreased in recent years. So unfortunately, sustainability now has to compete with the mental bandwidth when many are actively disengaging with these current affairs. So thank you very much for your time, and to learn a little bit about GWI, if you want to find out more, definitely find me and I can show you how the platform works. Thank you.
Old school. It's been a year since we went from the Zoom to the room for the boom. I don't know if anyone remembers that. That was my best line ever. It was a singular presentation and I made a lot of claims that day. Did a bit of bribing as well, gave out some prizes. We're going to do that again today. One of the claims that I made, I think one or two of you tried to pull me up on it afterwards, was the great migration of the Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth workforce to regional locations, and quite a few of you told me that was all going to cycle its way back, and that just didn't happen. And I thought that today, given that the ABS last year showed that regional population growth is outpacing, its trends, to the largest extent in the last 4 decades, it might be worthwhile just coming back and revisiting a little bit of the dynamics around what's happening in regional markets, and we would do that through a tourism lens, I reckon, would be a great way to do that. So we've gotten a terrific panel together to unpack this, and I'd like to welcome Penny Davey-White, the founder of Tilt Agency, which is a Canberra-based agency. I'd like to welcome Dr. Isaac Mizrachi, who is heading up as Senior Director of Marketing for Visit Canberra. And I'd like to welcome also Belinda McPherson, who's Executive General Manager for Regional at News Corporation, based up there on the Gold Coast. And we're going to sort of unpack a little bit about the dynamics around what's happening with the market at the moment. So I might just start with you, Isaac. What I'm seeing in the market at the moment is a massive amount of interest in domestic tourism. That's obviously translating very well for regional economies because we're obviously a fairly major destination in that respect. I think there's consumers making choices about whether they travel domestically or travel internationally and where they go. And I hear that you are just about to launch a new campaign to sort of stake your claim for a fair share of the market.
That's right, yeah. In 2 weeks' time, actually, and many of the media in the room will take part in that campaign. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us on this big experience. Yeah, big campaign. Going one step back, I guess it all emerges from the challenges Canberra is facing as a travel destination. There are many challenges. If I'll mention just the main two, as you said, strong competition for domestic travelers. The situation is that all destinations basically fight for the same pool of people. And when your competition is Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland, you know, their budgets are so much higher than ours. We have to work with a very modest budget. Our resources are limited, so it's harder to cut through the noise. Second challenge is that Canberra still suffers from negative perceptions, I guess, among many Australians. And that's a shame because it's such a great travel destination. There's so much to see and do. And with this new campaign, we try to address these challenges. So first, we try to stay away from what other state tourism offices are doing. Our creative is taking a completely different approach. So think about any typical domestic destination campaign or global one. It's all about the beautiful vistas and the landscapes and sunsets and gorgeous models. We take it to a different direction. We focus on people, on real-life Canberrans, and we bring in a bit of humor. So we prefer not to take ourselves too serious with this campaign, just to be a bit light and fun. We're trying to say that the reason you didn't hear about Canberra as a destination is because the people are so humble and they don't like to brag about the city and, you know, to show off and so on. So that's, I guess, the direction we're taking. And hopefully it will give Canberra a bit of a personality. So, you know, you think of Sydney, you think of Melbourne, you immediately see something, you see a face to the city. With Canberra, when you think about it, what do you see? Parliament House. I mean, we try to change that with focusing on people, and fingers crossed, we'll make it happen.
Oh, we're pretty proud of our Parliament House as well, but sometimes I think taking the
100%.
politicians out of the story might be a good thing for you. Penny, you're executing on this, and it's a major piece of work, and it's national. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you're having, or how you see the opportunity in the media landscape, and how you've managed to get this away?
Thanks, Brian. Hopefully that's working. I guess, as Isaac said right from the forefront, I'm used to having very big budgets, and now we have very small budgets. So our relationships with a number of you in this room have been imperative to us to really try and stand out. I think the other thing for us is, as Isaac said, we're all doing the same thing. So we're all trying to attract you to go to, be it Orange, Mudgee, Gold Coast, Noosa, wherever it is. It's how do we have a unique proposition, and how do we actually leverage our media to really truly tell that story, and also identify who's more likely to consider it. We're not actually saying come to Canberra for a week's holiday. We're actually saying come for a weekend. You know what? We have so much to offer. Then we were talking outside of all of us are loving the orange, and we don't dish our New South Wales country counterparts, because actually we're all trying to do the same thing. But actually, if you think of the family friendliness of Canberra, we've got a lot to offer for full family. Plus, we've got a lot, amazing restaurants, great galleries, great vineyards. So, you know, it's getting you out of that thought of Canberra is just politicians and roundabouts. And we always come back to, in fact, I had a meeting with a client yesterday and they said, "You're so right. All I can think of is my first school trip to Parliament House, and I've never been back." And that's probably one of our biggest challenges. But I'm going to add one more thing. We don't just market to Metro. So we really look at that 3 to 4 hour drive, and we actually really try and think of how can we entice them. We're an affordable city to come visit. So if you do live in Wagga, that is equally as important to us as Sydney. So we really do look at what are the markets that we're more likely to attract, just not where the numbers are.
And are you finding that, from your perspective, from a planning perspective, that you've got a reasonable sort of spread of tools that cover all the markets, or is there a challenge there?
I think we'd all agree in the room. Look, one of our challenges always, we were talking data earlier, unfortunately for regional, it is hard for us, and I think if you're based in Sydney, as I was for 25 years, you can very easily fall into, well, what does Roy Morgan tell me, and therefore that's all I need. And now when we look at the advent of our Google programmatic platforms, etc., Facebook, it's very easy to say, well, it's cheap CPMs and I can get my reach there. The The challenge is trying to actually really unpack that data by market, actually really think about who are we trying to attract and what channels exist that we may not have data on Roy Morgan. You know, I'm a big believer that there's a role for all media. It really comes down to who's right for us, who's the audience, what are they consuming, but equally what is the user experience in that market? You know, I think I can say, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook. But we use it because you have to. But actually, I think that, you know, we're talking as an industry, it now is about attention and engagement. It's not just cheap impressions. And I think that's really important when we're choosing the channels that we are using to try and connect. And hopefully we'll convince you all you're going to come to Canberra for a weekend.
Those connections are really important, and I think the media's got a role to play there, Bill, because you know, obviously content and local content and building content around communities is really important, and you're leading the charge there.
Yeah, BG, I mean, I use a term, I mean, I think everyone's heard of the term glue days, you know, where you bring your team into the office to collaborate, to work together and to connect. If you think about these communities, the regional media in those communities are the glue days. It's what brings people together. It's how we connect. It's how we communicate with each other. It's how we share stories and feel a sense of place. I was in Townsville last week and I walked down to the coffee shop with the local editor there, Craig, and we had no less than 6 people stop us on the way to the coffee shop, and they all had an interest in the content that we were talking about on that day. You know, one of them said to us, I heard you on the radio yesterday, Craig, you know, really great segment talking about health in Townsville, and really excited you've got the health minister coming to visit. You know, if there wasn't regional media in these markets, we wouldn't get outcomes like that. And, you know, getting the health minister into Townsville, which is in a shocking state right now, has 2 major hospitals, they don't work together, long waiting queues. So I think regional media plays a really important part, and we've seen time and time again when you take strong regional media out of a community, it suffers as a result. So, glue days, I'll leave you with that.
Thanks. So, thinking about, you know, you've got a you know, plethora of channels and platforms to sort of engage with, and I'm interested, Isaac, if you're thinking about your creative approach to, you've got a key theme about this creative, or, you know, putting the humour back into your messaging, and I'm wondering how are you going to sort of target messages to audience or platforms? You know, do you see an opportunity, or would you even consider changing your creative messaging for a metro versus a regional consumer, for example?
Good question. No, we treat everyone the same when it comes to messaging. We've been doing so previously, so it's not just about this campaign. The only one tiny element that we feel that our data tells us is different between metro visitors to regional is shopping. So we found out that many regional visitors to Canberra come to the city for the shopping experience, whereas Sydney, Melbourne, etc. don't really care about our shopping offerings, which I'm not sure why, but there you go. That's the only difference.
They're there for the food and the entertainment.
Yeah, there's so much other to see and do.
I was interested also, just following up with you, Bill, on the content side, the amount of your distribution of your company's material. It's, you know, traditionally a print business, but the explosion in the way you guys are configuring to deliver to your local regional audiences in a digital formats is probably worth unpacking a little bit as well.
Yeah, look, I think you've probably heard a lot, and I haven't been in all the sessions this morning, but you've probably heard a lot about data, and I think increasingly journalism is led by data, believe it or not. So just like we've always used data and insights and research to plan for clients, our journalism, you know, we are a subscription business. We've become a consumer business. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about the same things you do, how to get cut through with consumers. And we use data. Data is our primary source of getting that cut through from consumers. Our data and insights is second to none. In fact, you know, we're about to probably start licensing it to other publishers globally. And that helps us make informed decisions about the content we produce, what we put in front and behind a paywall, what our audiences want to read and what they engage in. And we know down to the level of, what intent they're going to do on that day. So for us, content is critical, local content is critical, but data is what drives a lot of our approach now. And I think, should be driving a lot of our content approach in any publisher.
100%. Penny, you're working with a range of different clients out of the Canberra market, and you've got a very big footprint that you're trying to reach for many of those clients. Have you had sort of situations where you've been able to sort of move the needle for the regional media companies in any way through that kind of data approach?
Sure. I guess one of the biggest changes I think we've made in the last 12 months for a client that's actually Sydney-based, it's a national client, was when we took over the business, they had this viewpoint, as a client does, of 75% of our sales come from the top corporations, and 80% of those businesses are based in Sydney and Melbourne, and therefore previous agencies and even the marketing team just assumed that our marketing would all lean in to those top two markets. And we actually said, give us your sales. Let's look at, well, what is the data telling us? And we went back to them and said, well, actually, did you know that 65% of your sales comes from regional markets? Even the client didn't realise. No, you're wrong, Penny. And they went back and re-looked at their data 3 times and said, well, hang on, how are you cutting it? But anyhow, we were right. And with that, we said, well, therefore, what we're doing needs to be very different from our media strategy. So we really need to be thinking about, which markets are they? So, again, good media planners, we tend to look at this. All of us, exist because we want our clients to succeed. We're not doing it to make it easier by just buying national media. But really unpacking that data completely changed the channels we used, how we worked with media owners. We got, and look, the end result at the end of the last year, they had their biggest year post-COVID that they've ever had. And their brand awareness went up from 66 to 82%. So I just, again, it all comes back to, yes, it's data, but it's really thinking about your client and equally what success looks like for them. It might be that those main corporations are in metro, but actually where's the business coming from? And I think that, it's our duty to actually do the right thing by our client and unpack it.
Yeah, I think that's terrific advice, because there's a question here I was going to ask, which was, what have our clients got to remember when they're sort of looking at engaging with regional markets? And it's, dig into the data is probably the key message that...
I can add one more to that.
Yeah.
I actually think the other thing is that marketers, agencies, we all think, and again, I've worked on a lot of big brands, as most of you know, and we can all look at it and say, well, Sydney's got 6 million plus population. But actually, if we come back to Canberra, I think we saw earlier from Gay's presentation of Canberra had the biggest use of digital media, right? Take Canberra, yes, I'll wear that hat today, but I'm representing all regional today, that, if you look at our Canberra makeup, we're actually the most educated with the highest disposable income, and actually our properties are second to Sydney. So we're a really expensive market. So yes, we're only a 450,000 population, but put your hat of ROI, do a campaign in Canberra, and guaranteed you'll get much more higher return on investment than you will in Sydney. So I think you need to go beyond just population and size as well.
Actually, I'm interested in your impressions on this one, Isaac, because you've come, to Canberra via Melbourne from Israel, and you're seeing a discussion taking place about the relative values between one population and another. And I'm interested in your perspective on that, because I doubt that you would have seen that in other places.
Honestly, to me, it's one big, beautiful country. I still don't understand the differences. I mean, the discussion about metro regional when it comes to media, obviously, it's deep and diverse, and I get that. But from the perspective of a destination marketer, to me, it's one big, beautiful destination, and that's our focus, really, just to sell this beautiful place called Australia.
Absolutely. I see you.
Yeah, I'd probably just like to remind everyone that a third of Australia's population lives in regional Australia, and yet, you know, we've had a little bit of an increase since, you know, Boomtown Collective has come together, which is unheard of in itself. All of us media players partnering together on outcomes for regional Australia, but you know, it's only about 14% of brands investment. So there is an enormous untapped opportunity in regional Australia that as marketers, we should be far more aware of. You know, if you have an online sales client, i.e. someone who is focused on e-commerce, 7 of the top 10 online sales postcodes by volume are in regional Australia. So I'll leave you with that.
That's almost a mic drop moment. So I think we're just about cruising towards time. So I think if we could sort of get from our panel some final sort of tips or watch outs for connecting with regional audiences, or any observations that you might have that we could wrap.
Do you want me to start? I've just got a funny story actually I want to share. We've all been playing around with ChatGTP, and so thinking about how that can play a part in journalism, and particularly regional journalism, where, you know, we're basically running on the smell of an oily rag, and we're trying to deliver really great content every single day. So we're having a bit of fun with it, and I just think this is a really pertinent story given everything in the media at the moment is about AI. So we entered a news story we wrote in the NT News a few years ago about a gentleman who had a firecracker go off that burnt his nether regions. And we asked ChatGTP to write us a headline. I just think this is a bit funny, and I'm just going to get it up. Man suffers injuries after firecracker mishap in private area. So that's what ChatGTP wrote for us. The NT News that day ran with cracker up his clacker. So... you know, it doesn't matter how much data is really core to where you start your planning, and AI will play a part in our future, but good journalism and a deep understanding of these communities is core, and the reason why regional media exists today and why it will continue to exist in the future.
And in one line, connect with your audiences.
Correct.
Well done, I like that. Isaac?
Probably no any further comments other than we are giving away a nice prize, and I'll let Penny mention it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, do you want to do that now? Sure, unless you've got anything. I guess I was just going to add before
more
I do
educative.
I think Belinda's right. Like, you know, I think with the theme today has been understand your audiences. I'd actually like to give a play to, when you are thinking about regional markets, lift the hood from, just your metro reps. I think it's really good talking to those on the ground and really understanding, you know, what is the community. We all talk about user experience. The experience isn't the same for all markets, and we actually need to really think about what makes up that population. You know, an NT News is very different to the Canberra Times, right? So I think whilst we're talking one size fits all, it's not really. And I think you can get really great. One of the questions I did have in there was, you know, what's the opportunities for regional? What you find is our little regional reps do work really hard to try and convert some sales. And, you know, we're all about driving jobs for all markets. And I think it's a real opportunity for us to tap into those on the ground.
Absolutely.
And then you want me to do the other?
I'll circle back, because I've got one as well, because statistically, the data is telling me that before this year is out, every single one of you is going to make your way through a regional market in some way, shape or form. Including Canberra. Grab your, grab your listener app or your radio app or whatever it is, and make sure that you set your, interest towards listening to some of these and engaging with some of these radio stations and television stations and newspapers on the way through that journey. And you'll find really strong local connection, and you'll figure out pretty soon how to leverage that for your clients. But yes.
So to entice you all, thanks to Boomtown, have offered $500 weekend away to Canberra. I don't know if Brian, you've got the mechanic.
Yeah, the mechanics. Now, we did this, I don't know if you recall last year, but the mechanics were a shit fight because, and let me explain why. It was because when I walked up to the lectern, I thought, ooh, be good to give something away. The mechanics were, pretty crap. So this year, we literally decided walking on the stage that we'd do this. So the mechanics once again will be total crap. These are the rules. Only people who are following us on LinkedIn are eligible to enter. So that means get your mobile out, go on, follow us, the Boomtown page on LinkedIn. That's easy. And then flick us an email. What email address do you want? info@boomtown.media. Subject line, graft and corruption. And, prize. Kim, it wasn't that bad. She's completely appalled. And we will randomly draw one from a virtual box of some type tomorrow and let you know. That's how it's going to work. So it's a $500 gift which Isaac has very kindly put on the table for accommodation and meal, and Boomtown will add the flights down to Canberra.
What's the email again?
info@boomtownmedia. What? info@boomtown.media.
And actually, because you're based in Sydney, you can drive. It's only 3 hours.
There'll be a 12-year-old somewhere who can help us out with it. Thanks, Barra. Congratulations, panel. You've done an excellent job today, and thanks for helping us unpack, all the opportunity that's available to all of these fine people in regional Australia. Over to you, Sam.
Hi, everyone. It is very much, a little bit lower, a pleasure to be here with everyone and kick off 2023 with the IMAA. What I'm here today to do is start with the first slide, that'd be handy, give you a bit of a sneak peek into the program for the year ahead. Our industry continues to move forward at lightning speed, and we're seeing the results of that with having just posted over $1 billion in revenue for the first time. This is building on 2019 revenue by 4% in the last quarter, so we're all a little bit happy over at Out of Home. We know this is a result of working together and smarter with you to meet advertisers' objectives and deliver on the campaigns. So thank you for that. It's also a result of working with the MFA's Outdoor Futures Council, and with some of you that are here today, I also thank you for your guidance and perseverance to help us make Out of Home easier to buy. Importantly, the IMAA now represents over 100% of the industry, which is something to keep in mind if you're looking for out-of-home providers and strategically planning your placement. Particularly so when we are launching at Move 2.0 in 2024. We will be measuring all of our members' formats. But that's the future. Let's start with 2023, the main 5 things that make up the plan for the year. Firstly, people are out of home. You're probably not having any more of those pandemic discussions, thankfully, wondering when people will be back. They are absolutely there. And to prove that, I'll share this little bit of data which has been collected as part of the Move 2.0 build. Move 2.0's mobility survey currently being undertaken is the most comprehensive picture of travel possible, with second-by-second tracking indoors and outdoors of people's movements over a 14-day period. It shows on average that 82% of respondents leave home daily, which is very similar to that of the pre-pandemic levels, which was sitting at 88%. And when we're leaving home, we're on average making about 4.9 trips a day. A trip being defined as going to origin and then from origin to destination and then destination home. So for example, going to the shops and then returning from the shops home is a second trip. Our busiest days coming out of the survey are peaking on Thursdays, so weekdays overall peaking on a Thursday, and Sundays being the quietest. But even still, on a Sunday, 73% of us are still leaving home and on average making 4.5 trips a day. And when we look at the people's first week of travel as a whole, Thankfully, there's only about 1.5% of people that still think that we're in lockdown. The rest, being 98% of us, travel 1 or more days a week. And as those travel days increase, the percentage remains fairly strong, very high, and more than half of people, at 54%, leave home at least 6 days a week. What this means is that out of home is reaching more people than ever before, even those people who don't engage with other media on a regular basis from all walks of life. And to help you plan more effective campaigns, in just a few weeks' time, we will be launching our out-of-home toolkit. And the first phase is real-world reach. These tools will show you how to combine formats and media channels and how to use our newly introduced Neuro Impact Factor. We will directly address these 3 key metrics: attention, reach, and impact. And we're launching with a live webcast on the 1st of March. And of course, all the resources will be available on the websites. And here is a bit of a sneak peek into what we're doing.
When it comes to outdoor advertising, there are choices on choices on choices. How can you tune your campaign so your brand gets the most from outdoor? Like any good engineer, you should always pack your toolkit. Here are 3 tools that will help: attention, reach, and impact. How do you know your ads are getting attention? We've been calculating the viewability of outdoor advertising since the launch of Move in 2010. We take the full potential audience and apply visibility factors to calculate only those that see your ads. Do you want to reach the largest audience? Outdoor offers the largest audience of any media channel, reaching 93% of the population in capital cities. With a spend of $400,000, you can reach 65% of the population in 1 week. How about reaching Gen Z and millennials? Outdoor campaigns are in front of these people every single day. Outdoor is an ongoing presence in the real world. You can't switch off or scroll past. It's trusted, brand safe, and verifiable. And we know you want your campaigns to have impact. The Neuro Impact Factor provides scientific proof that campaigns on outdoor are remembered. Our study with Neuro Insights shows that one glance at a classic or digital sign has enough impact to store memories in the brain. Combine your formats to target specific demographics and tune your campaign using both digital and classic. According to a study by Analytic Partners, combining and using more than 4 formats will increase ROI dramatically. An effective campaign relies on your media buying tools. So, next time you plan your outdoor campaign, be sure to use your toolkit: attention, reach, impact.
So of course there will be much more to that story, where we break down some of the common out-of-home spends, such as your 100,000, 200,000 and so on, and show you the reach and frequency you can achieve when you buy, importantly, multi-format out-of-home campaigns. So keep an eyeball out there for this in market from the 1st of March. Number 3, programmatic buying is here. We only just started measuring the percentage of revenue that is generated programmatically in the out-of-home space, and we're sitting at about 3% at the moment. We are also building the tools to push out-of-home or programmatic out-of-home further down that path, and it is one of the most exciting areas in out-of-home at the moment because it is immediate and targeted, and because it can give you that mass reach. A really important part of the programmatic story is the impression multiplier. Out-of-home is a one-to-many, not a one-to-one, unlike other programmatic channels. To make out-of-home programmatic more consistent and easier to buy, we have been spending our time, and in fact we have built a standardised impression multiplier in collaboration with the Outdoor Futures Council, using Move audience data for roadside, retail and station formats. The Move impression multiplier data will be available to the out-of-home supply-side platforms, and it will be there very, very soon. More details will come on that one too. Also on programmatic, we have partnered with the IAB to deliver a conference on the 30th of March in Sydney, and this will allow us to really dive into programmatic out of home. The first half of the day will be sort of more of a technical focus, the technical elements, And then the second half will be more around strategy and case studies. We will also be announcing a very exciting announcement around who the international key speaker will be, and that will be coming out next week. So, of course, from the IMAA, we are very, very excited to be working with Gay and the IAB on this collaborative event. And it seems that the market is too, given that we already have about a quarter of tickets gone. So do jump on there quickly, and it's free, so join us. The jewel in our crown will be Move 2.0. We are less than 18 months away from launch and have quite a bit of data that we are working through. And to give you a bit of an idea of how Move 2.0 will be different, here's a side-by-side comparison. So on the left being the existing Move platform that's been in market for quite some time, and on the right is where we will be making a lot of the change. So firstly, Move 2.0 reports visibility adjusted audience for classic and digital signs. It also has the neuro impact factor, which we did release earlier on last year, and it'll be taking a strong place in Move 2.0 as well. This will be a national audience, including regional, and definitely following on from the presentation, there is a huge importance around that regional audience, and also capturing overseas and interstate visitors coming through. Move 2.0 will have hourly audiences for 365 days of the year, including seasonal variation, and we will measure all signs. This includes things like place-based, which means that we will now be measuring over 100,000 signs in the Move 2.0 system. So without a doubt, it will be a world-class audience measurement system, and not just for out-of-home. What we're doing here certainly rivals what is available for other media channels as well. And finally, number 5, we are very aware of our carbon footprint and are working with Net Zero Media to develop carbon output calculations for all of our signs. This year, we will be able to report those emissions when you book an outdoor campaign, which will allow you to reduce emissions overall for your media spend and offset when that's appropriate. What we will be expecting to see is that digital out-of-home is the most sustainable media. And that's, of course, in the Australian market as well as what I'm presenting on the slide here. And overall, the fact that out-of-home is significantly more sustainable than other media channels. So in the example I've got up on the slide at the moment, down in the bottom left-hand corner there, you've got the out-of-home environments highlighted, out-of-home classic being at the top and digital out-of-home falling at the bottom there. So what we're looking at is a comprehensive picture the German market has put together, detailing carbon emissions by media per 1,000 contacts in grams. And this is all based on the Green GRP calculator. We know, of course, that Germany has a far more sustainable energy grid, about 65% compared to Australia's 25%, but we're expecting that relative difference to remain the same. So there we have it. Pretty simple, straightforward, and there is a hell of a lot for us to be doing. Your 5 out-of-home nuggets for the day are that people are absolutely out of home again. Out of home reaches more people than any other broadcast media, and again, keep an eye out for the webcast to learn more on the 1st of March. Programmatic is here, and we have built our standardised measurement tool, the impression multiplier, which will help you buy programmatic out of home. And again, we have the conference coming up on the 30th of March in collaboration with the IAB. Move 2.0, we will be banging the drum on this one for quite some time. We'll be keeping you very informed throughout the year as we creep towards the launch in 2024. And then again, the carbon calculator will define your carbon emissions, but in the meantime, know that your digital campaigns are delivering low emissions. So as you can see, we have an exciting and innovative program in 2023, and we very much look forward to you guys joining us along the way as we continue to make out of home easier to buy. Thank you.
That is pretty much the last thing you're going to see in terms of TV telling you what's coming in 2023. Some great content, as you would expect. That's kind of the spine, I suppose, of our media. But what I wanted to do today, so I was here last year. How many of you were here for last year? Hands up. Yep. And so I thought about last year versus this year when Sam invited us to come and talk. And I thought, what's different between last year and this year? And I reckon it's actually the imperative around growth for 2023, for the 66,000 reasons that have already been explained this morning from everyone, which I all agree with, they're all 100% right. What is it about 2023 kickoff that's going to be really important? And I reckon that's growth. I reckon that's not just growth for your business, but I reckon that's growth for your clients' businesses. Sam keeps looking at the screen. I keep wondering if I've clicked the clicker. So I think growth's the big thing. And I know that a lot of you have clients that are principals, they're business owners. So growth isn't an abstract thing that happens 4 days down or 3 weeks down or 6 months down the track. You know, money out of my pocket spent on media needs to generate something tomorrow. And that's true for your businesses as well. So I thought, okay, as we kick off 2023, if we can agree that growth is the primary goal for all of us in this room and for all of the clients that you love and serve, then what can Telly do to help you grow? And then I sort of thought a bit more and went, well, actually, it's not really your issue because you know what Telly can do. You've seen, you know, the numbers, you've seen the return on investment. Often what actually happens is on the journey to growth, and it's not just Telly, all media can help you grow, there's the objections that you encounter. So I thought rather than me standing here talking about all that's shiny and new, cross-screen measurement, you know, more content, you know, technology innovation, TV, I thought what I'd actually do is have a crack at sharing with you so that you can share with your folk, whether that's client or internal teams, how to answer some of the questions that will get in the way of growth. Because sometimes people don't understand that they're getting in their own way. So, and here's some of the things. And obviously it's from a Telly perspective because it would be wildly inappropriate to talk about radio or cinema or other things, but, you know, kind of the same sort of thing. And I was going to do an interactive quiz, but I was told Wi-Fi was a bit wonky. And I know that I'm the thing that stands between you and the kind folk at QMS's Sambos and Drinks. So I'm hoping you'll play with me. We're going to do one arm up, one arm down, that kind of stuff. Good old-fashioned move your body at the beginning of the year stuff. So I'm hoping you'll play with me. And if you won't, then I'm buggered. Okay, so left hands. Everyone remember their left hand? I have to do it like this because I'm an idiot. Okay. Australians don't watch TV anymore. So you're standing there, you're presenting to the client. The client is not the principal, but let's call him a 28-year-old, you know, just finished uni, maybe 3 years experience. And you're like, hey, we've got this great idea to help you grow. And they go, no one watches TV anymore. All right, left hand up if you think that's true. Oh, you guys. You are correct. Oh. And here's the slide you can show them. Don't worry about taking pictures. I've seen tons of people taking pictures. All this stuff is on the website. You know, I think my bloody home number's on the website. So if you're looking for the information, by all means, this is the slide you show them that says, actually, the whole world is not playing games all the time. Lots are. But here's the slide. So I'm not going to labour the points, but it's like, this will help. Next question that I get asked is, only old folk, dare I say it, some of us in the room. Yeah, I am looking at you, Sparrow. I've got to make this, I sort of feel like I'm presenting like this. I have to, yes, that's better. Okay, only old folk watch telly. Not true. How many of you would have said that was true? Show of hands. Pick any hand you like, left or right. Yeah, good, okay, good. Honesty, I love that. Here's the slide you present to them. It's true that linear television is viewed by lots of folk and they tend to be a bit older. Unsurprising. What we're actually seeing though is audiences are moving. So if you've got a younger target audience or a younger principal, then by all means whip this slide out. That's not to say that young people aren't also going to the movies, they aren't watching, playing games, they're doing all sorts of things. But in a pound for pound return on investment business growth, which I'll bring you back to, that's kind of what I want to try and help, is give you the tools to help you and your clients grow. Video is really important. Audio visual is actually even probably more important from a return. And here's a slide that might get you over the hump if their view is that that audio visual is not right for them, video is not right for them. This is my favourite. Okay, right hands now, so the opposite of the last one. And I've only got 5 of these for those of you who are already bored rigid with it. It's not going to go on for much longer. Online video is bigger than TV. So hands, right up hands if you think that's true. Okay, good. Yep, good. So when your client says, nah, we need to be online, we don't need to, we need a screen. There we go. That's actually not true. And this is the slide from Price Waterhouse. So we haven't jiggery pokered it, we could have. But if you look at free-to-air and subscription, you'll basically see that if you, and video is important, Gay's already said it's growing. If you actually add all that stuff together, what you'll find is that video, in the sense of television, whether that's BVOD, streamed, on-demand, linear, whether that's regional, whether that's subscription, whether that's metro, is actually a larger universe. And what you will find is that the way people are working now, it's easy to buy them. So that's a really useful one when you get told that, you know, the size and comparison. And that's my other thing, my little pet peeve. I love percentage growth, like that's cool, but at the end of the day, 5% of 5 people is not going to be very helpful. So I would always beg the question when someone goes, we grew by 11 bazillion%, ask them what the base is. Because at the end of the day, if we come back to the central issue today, which is growth, your growth and your client's growth, it's about numbers. High velocity reach, high impact. So there you go. I'll get off my soapbox. BVOD, just like Netflix, only with ads. True or not true? I suppose let's try a left. No, actually, let's stand up. Come on. Oh, I've got lack of enthusiasm. Oh, no, there's some. Okay, stand up if you think that BVOD is all about on-demand or catch-up. Oh, you guys are cool. Thank you for playing, the rest of you down the front here. Thank you, Sparrow. I'm looking at that third row there for the next question. False. Actually, what we see, and again, don't bother, if you're looking at live sport in particular, news, what you actually find is that video, and particularly this opportunity, is a way for you to extend your audience. So again, focus on growth. Which one does the best in terms of media-driven sales volume? Now, I'll caveat this by saying we know every media delivers a positive outcome. Yay, us. Okay, that was a bit transparent, wasn't it? There's the graph. Yay, more graphs. Okay, this is a really important one. I actually did quite a bit of work to get this one. One of the common conversations I have with indie principals is that tele's expensive, video's expensive, production's expensive, and that only, you know, and we saw a lot of those brand logos today, Suncorp, Telstra, Harvin, you know, only those guys can afford to be in a really powerful audio-visual medium, whether that's, you know, on-demand, streamed or... And so only large advertisers, and this is one I know that your clients, because I've spoken to them, have the same conversation. So hands up if you think that only advertisers with large budgets are able to use telly. Yep, fair. That's actually not true, and I'll tell you why. If you actually look at 2022, more than half of telly advertisers spent 25 grand. That's basically from Nielsen AdX. How'd they do that? I'm not here to give you the sales pitch on how they did that, but I can if you want later, or send me an email. But the data basically demonstrates that this myth that telly is only for big clients or large budgets, given all the ways you can interact, is not true. So my suggestion would be don't steal growth, and if there's a way, at least get somebody in the agency to take a look at it. Prove me wrong. I won't be, but sure, have a crack. Because otherwise I'd be embarrassed. Yeah, so basically it's not just for the expensive folk, and I think that's really, really important, particularly for those clients. We see a lot of growth coming from digital-only e-commerce folk, you know, the ones that started businesses in the last couple of years, and they've done great with search, and they've done great with social, and they're doing really well, and then they bottom out because they've actually reached the end of their audience pool. And what they need to do is extend outside and beyond that to make sure they're getting new humans, because basically new humans can be new customers rather than, oh, I'll be rude. I won't mention which airline, Red, who send me everything from buy a bottle of wine to a hairdryer to car insurance to, and I'm like, I'm on your frequent flyer list, I'm in your pool, but I don't want to buy any of that stuff from you. So, back to Byron Sharp, try and remember, that there are opportunities outside the pool. So we see a lot of digital and e-commerce businesses benefiting from this stuff. That's it. That's all the things I've got. There's a few things coming. Far be it from me to miss an opportunity to talk to you. In the same spirit of growth for FY23, one of the things we thought about last year, let's call it last October, when the Reserve Bank started to help us manage inflation, was media and media investment's going to get tougher this year. Again, everyone sort of said that. We went, how can we help the industry understand that? So what we did was we commissioned some research around media multiplier effects. Because I've never seen a plan, and I'm 11,000 years old, I've never seen a plan that had one media on it, one channel. Just doesn't happen, right? Even if it's just one plus search, even if it's a tiny budget. And as you get bigger, you add more channels. So we've commissioned some work to look at what the impact is of one media on another media. So that, if you're making choices about, I've only got $10 here and $14 there, where do I put it to get the best fit? We'll make that freely available. There'll be a ton of things coming up where you can come. Maybe, Sam, we can do a webinar with the crew. It incorporates pretty much every media, I think. Don't think we've missed anybody. No, I think it's all in there. And basically free. So it's based on, obviously, we're doing it with Professor Jana Bowden from Macquarie University. She's super clever. Kantar's entire database of brand impacts is the underlying math of it, I suppose. And so what it will give you and your teams and your clients is an opportunity to understand how to put stuff together in a year that's going to be challenging so that they deliver what we want and what you want, which is growth. Thanks very much for your time.